Anyway, so for each of these, I'm going to lay in a quick jaw shape, and it's going to be halfway over here. And then very loose, being very, very kind of wild with this. And maybe a line like that. That's where the cheekbone's going to go. We're going to have a C shape here, a C shape there, C shape here. In perspective, a little tiny brow ridge, nasal cavity. I'm going to do a very loose C shape right here, here as well. To bring that cheekbone out a little bit just to emphasize the style here. And we're going to have a line for the mouth. Make sure those aviator sunglasses really feel like they're there. I'm going to just paint in a little bit. Merge it down. Let's erase out a little bit. And just clean things up. Yeah, feels like a skull to me. Cool. Let's go next. Let's actually put a jaw on each one first. So I'm thinking this is a top-down view. So let's move this over here this way. If this is the curve of the bottom part of the jaw, I'm gonna go upward and just create a nice shape like that. Just kind of sneak that in right there. So if here's halfway, that's where that jaw is going to be. Draw it through, line straight up. Midline here, center line there. It's going to give us the cheekbone, C curve, another C curve. And we'll get to that in a moment. Same thing here. I'm trying to eyeball exactly where that halfway thing is. Get that jaw in there. And I'm not going to make the jaw as wide as how far the cranium is. Because remember, the lower jaw kind of sits in that cheekbone. So you have to make sure there's this negative space between. So we're going to make sure that when the jaw comes in, it's not as wide as the cheekbone. Okay, this is a up angle. Good luck with that. So that's where the center line is. And we're going to say that kind of just has a shape like this. Go ahead and erase that. And it should be a little bit more forward over here, but not too wide. Honestly, I would suggest filling up like a whole sketchbook of just these kinds of skull studies. What do we want to do for this? Let's go top down again. Even though we already did that over here, I think it'll be a good opportunity to kind of just see what our mistakes and habits are through repetition. All right, another top down. Notice I'm treating it pretty loosely. If you want to be more careful and accurate with things, that's perfectly fine. But I like the speed of just, constant repetition as opposed to sticking too much time in a single one. All right, so here's a line for the cheekbone, which gives us the initial C shape. And then that gives us the location of the other C shape here for the eye, which is a smaller shape. And then that gives us the other shape for the skull here. For the jaw, sorry, yeah. And then the nasal cavity will be somewhere over here, but first let's lay in the other eye. So again, just imagine it as aviator sunglasses. Kind of erase that. And the nose will actually cover this part of that. So it's going to be a little bit more forward. Let's let that cheekbone come out a little bit. Get that little bump of the brow ridge there. Okay. Now remember, we have to bring this out forward, then back in, then out forward again. And you're going to find me repeating this a lot because, as I said, repetition is key here. Let's shade that bottom one in a little bit so we can get indication of form. And we can get a nice little triangle in over here on both sides to kind of imply that shape of the cheekbone. We move that aside and kind of see how it looks like without the wireframe. And it works pretty well. Cool. Let's go next. All right, so the first C shape on this line is going to be over this part of the jaw. And the first eyeball there, and the other C shape there. Sunglasses, a little bump of the brow ridge. It's pretty much the same angle as that. That's fine. Repetition's great. Again, don't make the mistake of putting the nasal cavity here, especially from the 3/4 view. We're going to bring that forward right there. So let's just redraw it. And feel free to use straight lines if you want. Kind of has a nice sketchy effect when you do that. All right, forward, back, and forward again. And let's let that cheekbone kind of come out like this. Triangle for the shadow here, triangle for the shadow there. Maybe even emphasize the shadow there. And one way to imply the brow ridge here, that kind of shelf shape, is to just put a shadow here and a shadow there. And naturally, we know that any shape that's going to receive light like this is because it's aiming upward. So just with the isolation of not putting shadow there, we'll kind of make it look like it's aiming up. Cool. Works for me. Let's go next. All right, so here's that center line, which gives us that initial C shape, second C shape, and the third. Aviator sunglasses, bump for brow ridge, cheekbone, cheekbone, nasal cavity, out, in, out, out, in, out. Shade that in, put a shadow here, put a shadow there. Let's go ahead and do the outline over here. And there we go. It also, kind of as a curveball, it really helps to also study animal bones like monkeys, primates, elk? No, yeah, whatever. But yeah, different animal bones, because you'll start noticing similarities between different species. Okay, we go next. And already I think these are better than that first one I did. You can kind of see how indecisive and kind of rigid that one looks. So we want to always trust the process. Just keep going.